Welcome to Entertainment Plus. I'm Jan Waldman, and today we're in Newton, Mass. At the new TV studios to welcome the Folklorist crew. Hello.
Hello.
So good to see you guys. Okay, let me introduce everybody here. First, we have John Horrigan, Angela Harrer, and Andrew Eldridge. This is exciting. The Folklorist is one of my favorite shows, so anyway, I'm glad to be here. So tell me what you do, John, and how did this all get started?
Well, the program originated in September 2011. I got an call from a producer that I work with, Steve Russo, who I worked with back in the 90s, dare I say. And he said, we're looking for new programming. Would you come on in and talk to these two producers, Jesse Kreitzer and Andrew Eldridge, and the executive producer, Bob Kelly. And I came in and I started doing my historical shtick, and they started whispering to each other, and I'm thinking, boy, they dig me. In actuality, they were saying, do you really want to work with this nutcase? And then we came back in 2 weeks later, did a test, and I remember posting something on Facebook, back when I used Facebook, about we've done something special. I don't know what it is, but it'll be something that's never been done before. And then I got a phone call, I want to say December 23rd, 2011, and literally, Jesse called me and he said, you got to see what we've done with this. It's called The Folklorist. And I said, who is this? Because we had broken off contact.
So much time had passed.
And they had hired actors around this piece, a throwaway piece that I had done called The Christmas Truce, which was about a ceasefire on Christmas Eve in 1914 during World War I. And we got together with our wives, Andrew, myself, and Jesse and our wives, and we watched it. And that was the first episode, and it set us on our way. And Jesse left the show, and then, boy, we got lucky because somebody by the name of Angela Harrer joined us in 2013, and if it weren't for her, we wouldn't be around here today.
Yes. Angela, tell us about when you came here and what position you had.
Sure. Well, I originally came and filled a position called media specialist at New TV, and that was just sort of helping out all the departments with their various media needs. And Andrew was doing episode 2. He was producing that all by himself at this point. And I think he and Jesse were working on the pilot together, and now it was all left to Andrew, which is a lot of work, as you, I'm sure, are aware. Mm-hmm. And so I just continued helping out, and then Andrew just brought me in, and we kind of just started producing them. We did, I think, 5 episodes, maybe in one summer, that first year. And so
that was 2011 or 2012?
That was 2013.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we got a lot done that summer. It was busy, and he had just had a baby too, so there's a lot going on. First child.
So Andrew, now tell me, so when you were here before Angela and before John, correct?
Yeah. So I got lucky, I guess. 2007, everything's going away. All these jobs moving away, and I got a call while I was on the lake, said, do you want to work at New TV? And I said, sure. And so I've been at New TV since then and kind of started off as a PA, then moved up to media specialist, content producer, was helping Jesse with the show. And then when Jesse left the station, Bob was like, do you want to keep doing the show? I talked with John. John's like, heck yes. We did the Cuban Missile Crisis and Aesop's and American Army of Two. And it was difficult. I mean, we didn't have scripts, which was something that Ange kind of brought in to that. She's like, well, you guys should really probably script and write down your stuff. and we're like, yeah, that makes sense. And so, and then, of course, we just kept going with it. And I think we've got, 13 episodes total now? Mm-hmm. So
now,
it's been fun.
I do have to ask about the molasses one, because that one is great.
Right.
And I don't know who would like to speak on that one first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Tell me about that one. That one I just love watching.
So, I mean, John had come up and said, we got to do the molasses flood. I mean, it's kind of been a local folklore story for a long time. There was a great book called The Dark Tide, right? Steve Puleo, who wrote the book. And so, let's do it. And so we got molasses donated from the last molasses company in New Jersey.
And how much molasses?
I think it was 5 gallons of molasses, or it was 2 giant tubs full. And so we brought in all the actors in, and right at the end of the day, we have Mary Wexler and a few other, and we're like, Mary, can we throw some molasses on you? And she was like, yeah, sure. And so we're throw molasses on her and just scream. And so that was kind of what we did for the actors. And then we got a whole bunch of miniatures and built this winter set and got a 100 millimeter lens, and we did that take about 5 times, and this whole studio was just drenched in molasses. And we had like a tarp, but of course, yeah, nothing. It was all a mess.
But they still let you do more episodes after
Yeah,
that.
they still did. Yeah, yeah.
And you
I
still
know.
found actors, even though that you did cover them in molasses.
Yeah, well, I think this is the first time I think anybody outside that set knows that it was real molasses. You know, that was
The great acid spill we haven't been able to cast because people don't want acid poured on them. But one thing about that particular episode is the miniatures. It still works today for them to do it, and that's when I knew that Andrew and Jesse and Angela, there was something special there from a technical perspective, from their cinematography, that, wow, they pulled a fast one with that. And I just did a lecture the other day on the molasses flood, which took place on January 15th, 1919. And they wheeled in this woman, and she said she was 10 years old at the time and heard the explosion from Cops Hill Terrace. So, puts her well over 100.
Right.
But so that's a story, as Andrew said, that lives in folklore in Boston.
And I loved how it was leaking around the bolts, and then you had the
yeah,
heart
right.
pumping, and someone thought it sounded like a heart.
Yep.
It was
Oh,
probably undulating in
Yep,
there.
yep,
It was going to explode, and the rapid rise and dip in temperature, all that factored into
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, it was a fun piece.
I have another question. I don't know who's going to answer this one, but it's about the editing. And when you started, the way you shoot John, sometimes you shoot him from down here, and sometimes you shoot him from up here when he does his narration. And I was fascinated by that. Are you thinking about that when you do it, or does it just happen?
I think there's a level of, it depends on what the line lends itself to. Sometimes they will obviously lend themselves to a higher perspective, lower or more mid-range. We generally stay kind of in the middle, closer up, but occasionally for transitional shots, if we know we're going to cut to B-roll there and we want something epic, like the line can lend itself to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Sometimes they shoot me from up here, sometimes from down there, sometimes they just want to shoot me. But they're great directors. As an actor, they will give me the cadence and inflection of a line and do it this way. It's so easy for them, and I'm just miming and mimicking what they tell me to do.
Tar and feather the Tory. Burn his house down. Hang him. Burn his house
A little
down.
lower, I think that's
Okay,
definitely.
there you go.
Tar and feather the Tory. Burn his house down. Hang him.
They're so great to work with. We'll look at a script. It'll take 3 or 4 writing sessions to take a treatment and mold it into a screenplay. And we'll look at that, and Angela will say, can you try the line this way, or use this word? And it works. Or Andrew will say, why is that line in here? It doesn't fit in. And he's right, and we'll scratch it. So it's a collaborative process, and I know as an actor, I'm still learning every day from my 2 friends.
Well, I do know that you have to take these large stories and you have to condense them, and that has to be very difficult. And I can see that. Tell me about some of your favorite episodes. I know maybe you can't have favorites because they're your children, but maybe you can. And I was trying to pick mine, and it was very difficult. But who would like to talk about one of theirs?
I mean, I like the Witta. There was 3rd episode. Andrew was fully on then, and we got on a boat in the middle of Boston Harbor. I mean, that was a pretty cool episode. And also Sitka, which was kind of a simple one too. I think that was the first one that we kind of did fully together. Hugh Glass was a cool one too.
That was a good one too. Yes.
I mean, I think even guy dressed in bear suit, attacking
He
people
looked pretty
is awesome.
good.
Yeah.
He did look
what?
pretty good.
But there's right, exactly, yeah.
I was just gonna say on the bear thing, we get some comments
It
about
wasn't
it,
that
but
bad, really.
I think
I've
it's
seen
okay.
worse bears.
did the best we could.
Yes, it's good.
We weren't gonna actually have a bear on set.
And do you want to talk a little bit about how doing the best you can with certain, not having all the props, not having.
Well, that is kind of the folklorist style, is working with what you have, and we have a limited budget. Obviously, we're community access, and we have to imply a world. A lot of the time, we don't have access to ships always, or giant estates in London that we might need, or the English countryside. So there is a level of trying to work within the constraints of maybe the implied worlds, and we try to build up sound design a lot to kind of help that along and help the realism of the scene.
The rock wall has been used 100 times. Wake Island was outside of the building there. When we did Ape Canyon, it was the tool shed. So they're very creative. But I did want to talk about, you're talking about indoors and outdoors. First of all, when we shoot inside the studio, it's a black background. And still as a viewer, the background becomes insignificant when we're shooting indoors and you can create the characters. But when they go outside the studio with their cinematography, and he was talking about the widow, Amelia Earhart, we put a young lady in an airplane, Princess Caribou. My favorite was Cottingley Ferries. It looked like an English garden. And they're truly very, very talented once they leave the black box, as we call it. So I'm kind of proud that they will take the chances and scout out a set that they've never been to and pull it off. One of my favorite parts of working with them is when we do the voiceovers. I get to do all these cool voices, and we laugh and laugh and laugh and try this, try that, do this one. And some of them, they'll never make it to the final cut, but they're sinister or goofy, and I love doing the different voices for the different characters.
I think we all love hearing it.
Well, I was relieved when I heard my voice in Princess Caribou that I didn't have the voice of the man who said, "You are a beautiful creature." I laugh every time I see that one. That is one of my all-time favorites. And I said, boy, I dodged a bullet on my voice for that one. So that's really funny. But the one thing I do want to tell the audience is that we laugh as an actor on set, and we have some good laughs, and then time to work, and then we get back to work. But in between, it's a wonderful set. And I don't know if you all know this, but actors fight to get on this show. It is like everyone is trying to get it on their credits.
Really?
Yes.
I would not have guessed that.
What was that comment that you said about the folklorist is?
Mary Wexler actually was the one that said that. She said, I think in New York, actors make their bones on Law and Order, and in Boston, it's the folklorist.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. People, it's like a badge of honor if you can say that you've been chosen. I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but it really is. It's one of the ones that everybody is just, they want to get at least one episode in. And then there's the competition of those of us that have had more than one episode, and then like Herb Fuchs and Jack Goldman, and we have an ongoing, an Angel O'Connell. He's been in a few of them. I see the faces coming over and over again. So I thought as the crew you would enjoy that.
Well, I have a question for you. So, I mean, we're in here most of the time. So when you guys are in there, I mean, is it like you guys are talking what shoots you guys are on, like, or how does that like?
That's typical actor talk in the back room. Oh, they also have great food here too, which we don't get everywhere. People talk about what they're doing and connect and network, and that's pretty what you do. You wait around a lot just on any set, so that's typically what you do. Some people pull away. Some people, because we don't have lines, people are a little more talkative. Because people would be more worried about giving their lines and trying to focus on that, because it can, you don't want it to get into your head. But since we don't, we can be more social. So that probably adds to the lighter atmosphere on set as well.
We're always a little curious what some of the actors think when we don't give them sides, things like that. It is kind of just coming into some of these parts blindly, which we realize is unorthodox. But since there is no dialogue, does that ever get mentioned?
People, I know you've been on before. Did you get your sides? And so there are no sides. They'll throw you the lines, and they're like, oh, well, because as an actor, the worst thing is to go on set and be unprepared. We have nightmares about that. Like, you get to set and you can't remember your lines. I think every actor's been on a set where they've changed it up on them. Some people are really good at it, and some of the older actors, people that won't be named, are not so good if you changed up my lines the minute before you want me to do them. So it just depends.
I think it's a great forum for seasoned actresses like yourself. I mean, you're wonderful. You're one of our leads in our cast, and we'd love to cast you over and over again because you're just so dynamic as an actress, and it shows, professional. And then there are people that have no acting experience whatsoever, and they come on, they're put at ease, and you can hear the self-esteem, the tortured artists amongst the three of us about we don't know how if everybody likes us or not, but they come in, they mark up the script. After I've shot my narrative, I'm done. There's no way I can help them except distract them if I come on set. If they're shooting B-roll, they're professionals, they know what they want to get done, but they'll come in and they'll wing it. Like that's their style, and it gets done. It doesn't matter who you are. You could be on The Folklorist if you fit the role, and even if you're a seasoned actress like yourself. But I think that we keep ourselves insulated. I like to call ourselves the Fleetwood Mac of history, the three of us, because when we do shoots, it's some of my fondest times are when it's just myself, Andrew, and Angela, and a production assistant, where we get the narrative cut. We do the VO, it's a wrap, and then it's on to them. they take it from there, shooting the B-roll, and then making the final cut and doing the soundscape as well.
Yeah. The one thing I do have to ask, this is for John. When I was on the first few episodes, I assumed that you did your narrative after we filmed, but you do it before, correct?
Oh, sure. That's correct, yeah.
And that's why it's so important for us when you're telling us what to say, that we say exactly what you tell us to say.
Right, and as Andrew alluded to earlier, I used to do improv up until Anne showed up. And Anne said, why don't you do a script? And I love scripts, hiding behind forced lines and forced dialogue. I like that. There's structure there. And we'll do 3-4 writing sessions, and we'll come into the studio and we'll change it. And after that, we do the VOs, and then it's bring in the actors and the actresses. And as you mentioned before, it's easier to have the dialogue contained by one narrative as opposed to getting the actors or actresses to spout the correct line. And it'd be take after take, and you go down the rabbit hole, as I've been there many times with multiple takes.
Stories. How do you find your stories? You have, I'm sure, buckets of them everywhere, somewhere.
Well, some people submit them. Obviously, John comes to us with a lot of historical knowledge. So probably a good percentage of are things that John has either been lecturing on, the subjects he's lectured on regionally here. And sometimes we'll just find something along the way. Andrew will come up with some. I think you're the one that found Hugh Glass and kind of pitched it to us, and then the whole team gets together and we all bring what we have and we agree or disagree. If we're not on board, if one of us isn't on board, we just let it
scrap
go.
it.
Yeah.
You scrap it. Now, did someone run me through the process a little bit? When you do get a story, where do you take it from there? Because it has to be condensed.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I guess I tend to like weather and war. Ange likes hoaxes and cute, light pieces. Andrew's, he's a mariner. He comes from a sailor's family, likes marine pieces and historical, and we all love. I remember when they lit Washington, D.C. on fire in the Washington, D.C. tornado, I'm saying, they can do anything. Wait till they get a load. I'm going to make them topple a lighthouse into the ocean. Oh, you can do it. You'll find out. I give them these massive scripts. Oh, you'll work it out. Don't worry. You'll find out. So, but in terms of getting the subjects, I like hero stories. I like big stories, hidden history. We're not truly folklore in as much as we're hidden history. And I've always pondered, what is the new history? And if you mind if I go off on a little tangent, I've thought for night after night, what is the new history? And I've just heard this Hamilton musical where they're spouting Chernow's definitive biography of Alexander Hamilton to rap to danceable music, and I'm thinking that's the new history, because history, and this might be controversial when I say it, but it has been traditionally a male Anglo-Saxon heterosexual Christian history. So I want to see more heroine stories. I want to see more hero stories of minorities where their history has been suppressed, and bring in cool characters that we can all be proud of.
I agree. I love that. So
I think there is a bit of a conscious effort that we make to try to incorporate some of those stories. Obviously, they don't come across very often, but we do intentionally seek out some of the stories that you haven't heard before. Elizabeth Jennings was a piece that
I've never heard it. I thought that was fascinating.
It was a piece that we just came across while researching those type of stories. We were looking for a Rosa Parks kind of story, and that's something that John really was passionate about and that we were totally on board for. And we said, well, is there someone like Rosa Parks that isn't, because everybody knows the Rosa Parks story. We'd love to tell a story that is similar, but not Rosa Parks.
Yeah, she was the one that said, can you do that justice? And, you're right. How many times can you talk about Thomas Jefferson? And then Elizabeth Jennings 100 years before Rosa Parks. And we mentioned Rosa at the end. So that's good, because they bring me back down to earth as a historian. I try to cram in every single fact I can and date. And it's been Ange and Andrew who crafted into a screenplay. Can you bring it down to 3 minutes and 30 seconds? So.
We try to bring it to the television audience a little bit, where it is faster paced. It's not like reading a novel. It's not like reading a biography on these people, which we wish we could include all that information, but obviously there's just not enough time.
And how long are each segment? How long is each segment, or approximately, or the range?
I think like 3 to 10 minutes is sort of our we try to keep things limited because it's just hard to shoot.
And how many hours of footage do you have for a 10-minute?
For a 10-minute one, maybe 4 hours, 5 hours worth of footage.
And that has to be edited down.
Yeah. For some of these longer pieces, I guess if you include John's stuff in the studio, yeah, we do have a lot of footage, but and we do shoot 2, 3 cameras, 4 cameras sometimes, with depending on what the heck's going on. But
And the other thing I noticed when I was watching them, binge watching them, is that you used, and I don't, if you go back and forth with this, but sometimes you used historical footage. I don't know if it was the actual footage, but you used like timeline footage or whatever.
Sometimes if we can't, if like I know for like Bram Rock Fire that's coming up, we haven't found this prop, which is literally like a fire whistle thing, where it was almost like a film strip that would go out. And I'm like, well, we've got B-roll of that from the 1940s, so we just
you can
incorporate
use it.
that.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Or like the great New England hurricane, so.
Yeah, that was good. That was
Yeah.
actually really good that it was in there. It was real and you had
Yeah,
it, and it was
yeah.
nice that you could see it.
Sometimes we get lucky. Archive.org and Library of Congress and
And you can
Wikipedia
find it.
Commons. You can find some of these things by just. Sometimes you have to really look, sometimes it's close. If it has something similar, you can get away with it too. So as long as the narrative is kind of supporting it.
Going forward, where would you like to see the Folklorist go? And you can tell us a little about where it has already gone.
So, I mean, the show is on Comcast and RCN On Demand, and we're throughout Massachusetts on all the different community media centers and also throughout 400 other community media centers throughout the country. So we've done a
That's nice.
really cool job. Thank you. We've done a cool job of at least trying to do the grassroots sort of distribution. We've gone through a whole bunch of distributors, and we're like, okay, these are people who would take unsolicited historical documentary programming, and now it's just a matter of trying to get it out there to them and see if there was an educational audience out there for the program, or if someone likes John, and would love to, we love to get it onto a network. Who knows?
would
I mean,
be
that would be
wonderful.
great. I mean, and we could, go that route. I mean, but if not, if it's just here, we're still going to do it. And, our board, and Bob allow us to create this program. We're thankful for that.
Yeah,
and,
let's know who is. Tell us about Bob.
Bob's the executive director
Okay.
of New TV, and when we did New TV did a strategic plan in 2011, and they say, well, the audiences want original programs, and so that's where Ange and I are co-directors of original programming for the station, and so making the Folklorist has kind of brought New TV up, at least within the community media world, in terms of just the name, getting it out there with the program. Community media centers seem to like it. They always are asking for more episodes,
Yes.
And we want to keep doing it. So I think even if that's the sky, then so be it. We're happy still doing it.
And when I go on the map of the United States on your website and you click each state and you see how many TV stations are carrying, it's really nice. Some are more states than others.
That's a
but-
cool map, Ange. Why don't you talk about the website?
Yeah. Tell us about the website.
Well, we redid the website last year and decided to include some of that information because we kept getting questions about where is it airing, can I see it in my community, and we found that to just be a quick, easy way to answer all of those questions. We haven't updated the map in several months, but
But it is helpful because I did
Right.
look just to see. And do you have it in every state or not every state?
I think there's 6 or so states that still don't air the Folklorist, but we'll work on that.
Oh, I think North
Yeah.
Dakota was one of them.
Yeah, there are a few. South Dakota.
You're in
does,
South
yeah.
Dakota. I checked
Yeah.
that because I'm from Minnesota, so I was checking the states around there
Oh,
just
cool.
to see. And one station where my sister lives, it is aired on her
Oh, great.
public.
Has she
access.
seen it on the
No.
station? Oh. Well,
have to
it's
get you.
online, so if people are looking to watch
They
it,
always watch it when I send it to them, so
Yeah.
that's probably easier for
it's
them.
so much
but-
easier than it used to be too.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
it is, and you should talk about how easy it is to watch online. That's the
Right.
good news about it.
Well, it's all right now. It's totally free. You can go on our website. It's thefolklorist.newtv.org, and we also have a YouTube channel. If you just type in the Folklorist, it's all available. So right, yeah, and Facebook as well. We do post on Facebook. I think the videos are still hosted on YouTube, but
Yes, correct. Yes, you post, but I don't think they're on Facebook. I think they're
yeah.
just
Right. Yeah, it's a link.
So you can either
yeah.
go to YouTube and get
Right.
them, or you can go the
or
other
straight
way.
to the website. Yeah.
So now, how many stories do you have coming up in the next year that you've already fleshed out that you think you'll move forward with?
We have, I think, 3 or 4 right now.
100 up here. Right now we're mapping it out. We just, as Andrew alluded to, should we tell them about the Great Brant Rock Fire? It's the 75th anniversary of a fire that ravaged Marshfield, Massachusetts in 1941, and we're trying to align it with the 75th anniversary coming up in April. There's another piece. I don't want to show our hand yet. Robert Smalls, we shot that. He's a slave who escaped out of Charleston Harbor, stole a ship called the Planter, managed to run different checkpoints, came up to the Union blockade outside of Charleston Harbor. They were about to fire on him, and then he and his crew, they had stopped up and picked other slaves and their families up, waved, and he turned it over, turned the ship over, got to meet Abraham Lincoln, and it's a fabulous story. Went on to be a multiple-term congressman. So these are the stories that really energize us. Cool stories like that, hero stories, stories that may have been suppressed from what I call the popular public history.
Yes, and sadly, and I think we had talked about this once, Angela, about how the women, the stories weren't written for the minorities and the women. That was the reality of it all. So
we always try our best to get as many female and minority actresses and actors into our segments, even if it's not necessarily period appropriate. So some of the segments we're like, yes, anybody can be this character. It doesn't really have to be an older white male, even though that's what you would naturally assume it would be.
That's
So
okay, correct.
I think we take a little bit of liberty there, but I think for the greater good.
Right.
The more we're represented,
Right.
the better.
She'll cast different people, and then we'll basically say, prove that wasn't the ethnicity of that particular person. But you talked about female history, and I believe that has not given its justice. It's been suppressed. Everybody talks about Abigail Adams, and I like to say there were 10,000 Abigail Adams during the American Revolution. And she told John Adams, and she was the one who kept him level, don't forget the ladies, John, and he did. When they wrote the Constitution, when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, so to bring more heroine stories to light, I think that's cool, and it also brings more actresses and gives more people the opportunity to appear on the program.
Well, I can't believe we've run out of time. I can't believe this. It has been wonderful to have you all here, and I can't thank you enough for letting us come here and partake of your set pieces and just to let the audience know about the three of you. So John, Angela, Andrew, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you from Entertainment Plus, and find us on Facebook.